Phil Spencer. Hi, Phil.
Welcome to the 20 years of PAX. Andrea, it's great to be here with you.
I'm so glad you're hosting this panel for me, Phil. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody, and happy 20 years of PAX. It's PAX West in Seattle, and we are very excited to kick off Storytime. I'm Andrea Renee, co-founder and host of the What's Good Games podcast. Hopefully you guys have checked it out. Any What's Good fans? Yeah, I love it. I'm very excited to be here with the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Phil Spencer, who needs no introduction, really, right? To talk about the games that shaped your journey. And we're going to get into those games in just a minute, but before we talk about those games, Phil, I wanted to just talk a little bit about your love for games overall. It's no secret that you play video games, right? We hear about it, what you're playing on social media, and I just wanted to take a minute to talk about what's so exciting to you about the pastime that is video games and why you love playing them so much.
Yeah, it's been part of my life since I was a young kid. And maybe as a kid who wasn't a jock at school, was kind of an introvert, like I found my own space in the worlds of video games. And then as like the community grew, as I found other people who played either through schools or other things, it's just been like a formative part of my life. The other thing I'll say is I just love the interactivity and the storytelling in games. I think there's something about having agency in how you play a game and the choices that you make that just really connects me to the stories. And yeah, and you know, as now a father with children, which we'll talk a little bit about, my daughters are in their 20s, but they're still children in my eyes, that it's something I can do with my family, and that's special, family and friends.
I think a lot of people, both in this audience and watching online, share that sentiment. So you're in good company, Phil.
Thanks.
I wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge that Phil and I have known each other a really long time in the space of video games media. And I found this amazing callback to the very first interview I ever did with Phil. And it was... Look at how young we look. Oh,
you look the same.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I used a lot of serums. This was at E3 2011 in the Xbox booth. We are standing there with Aaron Greenberg.
Aaron Greenberg.
Still works with you.
Still at Xbox.
You guys still palling around, and this was such a fun interview because you guys had just rolled out a bunch of new Xbox Live features.
Yeah.
And one of the features that everyone was so excited about was cloud saves.
Yes.
Isn't that wild? It feels like it wasn't that long ago.
Still fundamental to how we game is that our saves can move with us. Yeah. Now, I remember this because you and I didn't know each other.
No, it was the first time I'd interviewed you, first time we had met.
But
yeah.
You knew Aaron.
Yes.
So we were in the booth, and Aaron said, hey, I know this great person. She's great at interviews, kind of up and coming. Let's go do an interview. It was like just that. I don't even know if we had a PR person around us. I think we just...
We didn't. It was very off the cuff, which is not how you get to interview Phil these days, everybody. He's a very important man.
No, but it was fun. And watching your career grow, your life grow through the years, it's been awesome. Like, I think the role that you play in the industry, your show, where, as we've talked about, I love that you and your group, you focus on the positives in gaming, the things that gaming can do and can be for people. I just think you've been an awesome part of this industry for many, many years, and I appreciate that, and I know the community does as well.
Thank you, Phil. That's very, very kind of you to say. Very humbling. It's been also very wonderful to watch your journey, having looked at what you've done inside Xbox and Microsoft Gaming over the course of your career. And I would love now to move to our conversation about the video games specifically that helped shape that journey, and not just your time at Xbox and Microsoft, of course, but your life overall. And I think it's time for us to potentially start with our first game. And we're gonna do a fun little thing with you guys here in the audience, where we're gonna play a little clip from the game audio, and we're gonna see if you can guess which game it is. Are you guys ready to play? Okay, well, let's get started with our first game.
Anyone?
Amazing. We'll give it one more second to see if they'll play, and then we'll just tell you what it is in the essence of time.
Oh.
I didn't hear any correct answers. The correct answer is, in fact, Robotron 2084.
Greatest game of all time.
Greatest game of all time. Wow, that's high praise. So what comes to your mind first when you think about your time with Robotron?
Yeah, so when I was asked to come and have this discussion and thinking about the games in my journey, I had to start with the arcades. Like as a young kid in Southern California, me and my friends getting on our bikes, riding down to the Pizza Hut or the arcade, checking out the new cabinets that were there, and then the community of players actually in an arcade, which was like a game unto itself. You know, it was the beginning of my love of what video games could be. And like there's things that I learned about like the community of play, and I'm a little bit older than most people in the room, but the cool thing about video game arcades is it wasn't just about playing. It was about surrounding the cabinet, watching somebody with crazy skills at Robotron or some other game, and kind of sharing your love of the games and watching the capabilities of the players. Robotron specifically is one that I got decent at, and one that I actually played all the way through college. I was at the University of Washington over here, and on the Ave at the 7-Eleven, there was a Robotron machine. Kelly, who is my wife now, was my girlfriend back then, and she was at a different college, so there were Friday nights I didn't have a lot to do. So Robotron at the 7-Eleven on the Ave was my jam. So yeah, when I think about where video games started for me, it was going into arcades, playing games, talking to the fans, the players there about games, and the anticipation of what new cabinet was going to come in and what great games were going to be there. And yeah, that was the beginning of it for me.
And I love how arcades are still relevant today, and that barcades are a thing, and there's a lot of different ways to play.
They're not a quarter anymore. I found that out.
Yeah, that's true. They are not a quarter. Though there are some places that do you pay once and you can do unlimited play. That's fun, and then you don't have to carry around, rolls of quarters in your pockets anymore.
Maybe we should build a subscription like that. I'm teasing.
Do you have something you'd like to announce here, Phil? No. Oh wait, no. I think it's interesting though when we talk about the kind of game that Robotron is, that this type of gameplay is still incredibly popular. I mean, you have games like Brotato or even Vampire Survivors.
I've heard of those.
Yes, they're very fun games. Like, why do you think that style of play continues to be relevant today?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something that's pick up and play about either a dual stick shooter, no camera control, which makes it easy, accessible. One of the things that I talk to game teams about a lot is session length of play. And it's really nice to have a game that if you've got 5-10 minutes, you can actually get something accomplished in the game. And if you've got 2 hours, you can sit there and grind your character or max out levels in Robotron. But I think like having that kind of iteration where you can play, set down, play, and then lack of camera controls, the kind of top down makes it really simple. And I think all of the games, those three specifically, also have a sense of humor. And I love when games have a sense of humor and kind of don't take themselves overly seriously. I think that's a good quality in games as well.
I agree. Like this next game that also doesn't take itself too seriously. It is pretty fun to play. So let's move on to our next game, everybody.
I wouldn't get it from that.
One-on-one, Dr. J versus Larry Bird, a deep cut pick. I love this.
Yeah, this is before your time.
Yes, it was before my time. I'm very youthful. I would love to hear about why this was on your list.
Yeah, so as I said, kind of starting in the arcades, going and playing with friends or just strangers who happen to be really good at a game that I wanted to learn. Then video games came into my house, first through the Atari 2600. I happened to play one-on-one on a Commodore 64, and my main nemesis was my father. I would play against my dad most nights. I was playing as Julius Erving. That was my go-to. But it was this kind of cool, it had a lot of those arcade, two players, you know, kind of a single screen, tight connection. But I also just love the reference to the things that I wasn't a huge NBA fan or basketball player, but the fact that you could see, hey, these are people from the real world, even though, as you saw in the graphics, maybe they didn't look quite lifelike, but in your head, like I was playing as Dr. J, and I was playing a game that I still think the controls were amazing. If you think about it, you played that game with the Atari 2600 controller, one stick, one button, and you swore that you had complete control over your character when the character shot, and that there was actually skill in the game. So, but I have to say the connection with my dad, playing with him, competing, just kind of our nightly tournaments were a ton of fun, and just showed me that games was about my friends, but also something that we could do as a family.
Yeah, Punch-Out was that game for me and my dad, and he was merciless, never let me win.
Oh, you could take him.
I mean, I could now.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching my dad how to play with dual sticks for the first time was an experience, because I think we all have the memory of when we first learned to play with double sticks and how, like, you have that, like, I'm only looking at the sky or only looking at the ceiling, period, and then it just clicks.
Yeah.
So that was a fun kind of journey for us as a father and daughter playing. And I think a lot of parents out there who game with their kids have those experiences. You know, I thought there was a really fun stat in the ESA's recent Essential Facts report saying that 83% of parents who play games play with their kids, which is an incredible number that so many parents who play want to also have that experience with their children. I mean, what do you think it is about video games that is such a unique bonding experience for parents and kids?
Yeah, I do think watching children make choice and consequence in video games is just like, it's a great learning experience. My daughters, as I said, are much older now, but even now we play Sea of Thieves together, and watching us kind of get together and everybody has their role. But I even think back when they started playing, and it's like, okay, we can go this way, we can go this way, there's consequence. Do we want to befriend this NPC? Do we want to attack this NPC? And it's, I'll say, a safe way for kids to see what the world is like, what choices mean. And then like another level of it, and this is kind of, again, part of my journey, when I started playing video games, Robotron, one-on-one, like I had no idea there was an industry that I could work in of actually making and video games being part of this industry. But now, you know, it's an industry that employs hundreds of thousands of people, has huge conventions like PAX here. I mean, it's an industry where you can actually build a livelihood. And then as kids, you start to think about, well, what does it take? I get asked all the time, like, what do I need to do to get into the games industry? And the cool thing is now you can be a writer, you can be an artist, you can be a programmer. Like, there's so many different things to do. I also love that it can spur kind of innovation in kids in terms of what they want, what they see themselves as when they grow up.
Absolutely. It was something I didn't have growing up either, and now there's scholarships and whole university programs and things dedicated to it. I've had several people ask me, like, can you tell me how my kid can, like, go to school to make video games? And I was like, do you have more idea about what they want to do? Because there's so many options.
That's right.
You know, art, programming, PR, I mean, it takes a village, right?
It does, and it makes it a lot more than just go get a math degree and learn how to program. Games today are true forms of art with so many different, as you say, disciplines that come together to make something special. So I like that. I like that in kids when they play, you know, if I'm a big believer, if I can see it, I can be it. I can see people in the industry who maybe look like me, sound like me, and that inspires me as somebody who loves playing video games as a kid. Like I said, at the time, I had no idea that I'd ever end up in a position like this. But I do love now when kids are playing and it's like, hey, I want to work in the video game industry. And I think that's a great thing for the industry.
Absolutely. Come on, future generations, come join us, make some video games. I think I want to move on to our next game, though I do have a couple more questions I could ask you about Dr. J, but I want to make sure we get to all of the games that we're doing today. And this one is a fun one and a very different style of game that I don't think people are going to be expecting from you.
No?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to guess this, this third game in the list today. So let's see if we can get a little clip for you guys. No one? Yeah, we heard a dragon. No final guesses? Oh, I think I heard it. Ultima Online? Oh, no, that wasn't the guess? Oh, well, Phil, let's talk about Ultima Online.
In my EA years here, from one-on-one to Ultima Online.
Yeah, we're gonna hit some of the big guys here. So this is a very different style of game from the first two games. Obviously, games have moved forward quite a bit at this point in time. What got you into Ultima Online?
So, as I said, kind of growing up, I played chess, I played D&D. So when I figured out fantasy role-playing games on PCs, where the Dungeon Master was actually the computer, like that was a pretty fun thing. So I was a big player of like gold box games, some of the early Ultima games. And then somehow I got into the beta. I don't actually remember exactly. I think it was in '97 when the beta of Ultima Online came out. And I started to play. And it was really the first time for me where seeing other people running around the world I was in and knowing that these are other players from places unknown. I don't know them, but here they are in the same gameplay world that I was in. Was something that it's kind of eye-opening. And because games to me, other than sitting next to my dad, elbowing him, playing one-on-one, games had always been something that was fairly solo. And then I started playing Ultima Online, and just the unlock of being able to play with other people and the consequences of that was a pretty instrumental part of kind of framing how I think about video games.
I think the magic of MMOs is still magical today. The way the technology works, that all of these players can be in the same space, having this effect on the collective world that they're all in, is truly a really cool thing that is unique to video games. I gotta know, what class did you play?
Yeah, I had to go back and look at this. I'm pretty sure I was a ranger. That would have been, and this is pre-Lord of the Rings movies, so I'd say OG ranger, not some kind of newfangled ranger. That was, I'd say the thing that drove me the most crazy, other than getting PK'd in the game, which like the first time I walked over a bridge and like, oh look, there's some people hanging out by this bridge, I wonder what they're doing. And then there's this spell, Vas Flam, that I remember oh so well, which is basically fireball. And they torched me, and then they would kind of walk over my old stuff. And if anybody played Ultima Online when you were not with us anymore, you were a ghost. And I thought I could like grief them by kind of, as they were stealing my stuff, it had no impact. But the thing that drove me the most crazy, and maybe still inspires me with my like Diablo 4 time right now, is knowing that when I was sleeping, there were other people that were playing and their character was making progress more quickly than I was. And kind of that grind that you have to get up, you have to play. I'm not sure that it's totally a healthy dynamic, but it drove me crazy to know that like I was used to when you turn off the game, turn off the PC, the game stops. But this was a game that kept going and other people were making progress that I was not. And it inspired many, many hours of Ultima Online, which I still think is, one of the seminal moments in gaming all up when that came out and the success that it drove. Took Ultima, a fairly single-player franchise, took it online, And I love being a part of it. I played that game for years, and it's still up. Actually, I looked it up. I think people are running the kind of an open public domain server farm for it. And I was thinking about jumping back in. I have not yet. But it's so cool that these communities can continue and be preserved.
Absolutely. I mean, the digital preservation aspect is so important to games, but I love the sentiment of you wanted to make so much progress, you just like had to keep going. I think we've all had many late nights where we just didn't want to put the controller or the mouse and keyboard down or whatever device you're using to play, because you just wanted to keep progressing and get better and, you know, get good, get all the unlocks, all the gears.
Like I said, I'm not sure it's completely healthy as I continue to grind. Like, there is step away from the controller and go outside and maybe eat or bathe. You know, all of those things are good things to go do. But in terms of, like, for me and what it meant at the time, like, it was a great place for me. And the one thing I didn't do, which we'll kind of get to in a little bit, when I was playing Ultima, all of the other players were strangers to me. And I never really made that leap to getting in a clan or meeting up with the people that I would see online. It was just, I was kind of too early in that journey. But kind of thinking now and what things like Xbox Live are and Discord communities and where people play, obviously this connection of I see somebody online, I see their gamer tag or their player name, and then building real world friendships is something that's much more prevalent today. But for me in Ultima Online, it was kind of my first scratch of, oh, these are other players, I wonder who they are. And obviously that in today's gaming world is much more of a kind of a thing of people coming together even at conferences and meeting each other.
Yeah, PAX is such a wonderful place for that, like clans and guilds and people coming together. I know that one of my clans is here, which we're going to talk about when we talk about, you know, some multiplayer stuff a little bit later on. But I love this idea that you were really just a solo player in a multiplayer environment, but that it was still a really impactful part of your journey overall.
Yeah, I mean, there were events, like if people remember the special event where Lord British got taken down, and this was like a moment that got written about, and you realize that, okay, these communities, the things that happen in those worlds might actually have persistence, might actually live outside the frame of the pixels on the monitor that I was playing on. You know, I think now when you look back of it, I guess it's easy to think about as concerts are taking place in games and games are going to movies and television, that, oh yeah, this was always going to be that video games were going to expand beyond what they were. But at the time, I wasn't smart enough to kind of see those trends, but it's cool to look back and see how those, and then like you said, the industry has put together things like PAX where people can come together and meet friends IRL that they play with. And I just love that about the industry. The connection with the community of players is, I think, to me, the most important thing about the industry.
I absolutely agree. I love that you can have friendships with people you've never met in person and have actual, like, deep, meaningful relationships with them, and then you finally get to meet them in person, and it's like such a cool moment. Has anybody in here meeting a clanmate or a multiplayer person the first time? Yeah? Nice.
That's awesome.
This.
That's awesome.
It's happening, everybody. Well, I'm so glad we got to hear about your time playing Ultima. I'm sorry that they burned your body and took your stuff, though. That's part of the game, though, I guess.
Regretfully, it's not the last time that people have bombed my base or killed my character online. But it's part of gaming. It's okay.
You'll win the next one, Phil. You'll win the next one. Let's move on to our next game, because I have a feeling we're going to talk about this one for a little bit, because it's a big one. What, no one? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. There it is. Well, we couldn't talk about games that shaped your journey and not talk about the iconic Gears of War. So I love that you picked this one, and I can't wait to hear about why you picked it and some of the reasons why Gears is so important to you.
Yeah, so as I shift from somebody who plays a bunch of games to now working at Xbox, which is 2001, 2002, kind of around that time, Gears is actually the first game that me and my team, we signed. And and it inherited a lot of games coming in, things like Fable and other things that I was in charge of seeing through. But Gears was really the first big decision on, we're going to go sign a game with a partner. At the time, it seemed like a big budget. Today, it's like the audio budget in one of today's games. But at the time, it seemed like a massive budget. And then seeing the production, the code name was Warfare, which I've said many times, and then watching with Cliffy and Tim and Mark Rain and Mike Capps, how that game progressed and finally came out. And then, like, obviously, a bookend to that whole experience for me was this June at Showcase with the announce of E-Day, like the fact that Gears is still here, still part of what so much of us care about in terms of what Xbox means and our history. So there's that, like, and we should dive into some of that. And then there's also some of the things about co-op and the kind of beautiful destruction of the game and the story. Like, for me, kind of early in my Xbox time, being part of that production and some of the decisions that were made was really cool. And I definitely both appreciate and respect what this game is.
It's such an incredible overview of where Gears started and where it is today. And I'm glad you brought up E-Day, because I definitely was crying in the audience when you guys rolled that trailer. I mean, the characters of the franchise alone are so impactful to so many people for so many reasons. Was there a particular character that you really resonated with, or was your favorite?
Yeah, I'm kind of traditional in these ways, so Marcus will just always be strong with me. Like, when people usually ask me what the best game in a franchise is, I usually start with version 1 because I know the bravery of building a new franchise, a new IP. And then Marcus, I think, carried so much of the weight in the first game that the character and kind of how he aged through the series, maybe there's some reflection in that. But yeah, and all of the obviously creative, technical capability goes to Epic and the team that built the game, but being part of it and seeing its progression. And we should talk a little bit about how Gears became part of our portfolio, because it's an interesting
I was going to ask. Thank you for teeing me up. I think we should start with Epic and how you guys started that relationship working with Epic in the beginning.
Yeah, so the first game, if I'm doing this memory right, was Unreal Championship 2, I think we brought to Xbox. And it was the beginning of our relationship with Epic. It was, and for our perspective, and I worked for somebody named Ed Fries at the time who ran all of first-party games for Microsoft, and we were talking about engines that we needed to have successful on the platform. And obviously the Unreal Engine still such just a strength in the industry. So we said, if we go do a first-party game with Epic, obviously they're going to focus on the Unreal Engine on Xbox, and there's goodness for the industry and our platform if that happens. So let's go do Unreal Championship, and then the real goal was to sign Warfare. The thing is, when we got to the point of signing Gears, I remember going into Ed's office, and I won't name the other game because it's not fair, but there were 2 games that we could sign. I couldn't afford in the budget that I had to sign both of them. And they were both kind of big swings, as I said, from a budget standpoint at the time, seemed like huge investments and a lot of risk. And Ed just turned in and said, I should make the call, which kudos to Ed. Like, I appreciate the empowerment there. It also kind of freaked me out. But we made the decision to go with Warfare and Epic. Cliffy and Mike and the team there just had such passion for the game. And I have to say, the fact that the game had co-op as part of its core kind of loop was a big part of me wanting this game to be part of our portfolio, because I just love sitting on the couch playing with friends. Like I said, it's kind of magical what the thing is turned into.
It's so wild sometimes when you think about the moments in time that have these giant ripple effects. Like, what if you had picked that other game? Like, where would we be right now? What would we be talking about? How would that have impacted not only what you guys are doing with your portfolio, but also Epic's portfolio and where they went? Was there a particular thing about what you saw that really stood out to you or was special to you that was like, this is the reason, besides the co-op functionality?
Yeah, when I think back on it, and I think this story has been told a couple of times, but it's good to revisit it. Obviously the game, even today, if you go back and look at Gears 1, and I'm actually playing through the campaign with a coworker, and she's never played the campaign. So the fact that we can go and play through it again, and it still holds up so well is great. But we knew the game was going to be beautiful. Like the goal, like for obviously Epic with the Unreal Engine, third person, so you're looking at the back of Marcus, so you've got this huge, just ornate texture that's covering a third of the screen. Let's go do an awesome job. And the story about the memory on Xbox 360 and how much RAM was going to be in the box, this was actually a game that drove our memory decision for 360. The choice was going to be to have smaller RAM footprint when we were going to launch. We all got together, Jay Allard, Ed, Peter, all of us in a room, and we brought in Gears to say what could we do with the extra RAM that we were going to put in the 360. And it was really driving the visual fidelity of that game that pushed the decision. And when you make these decisions, which I see now, because in my role then I was first party, so RAM was just more stuff for us to fill up with cool looking graphics. But now you look at it and the cost is really significant. Like the bet that you're going to go sell tens of millions of these things, and every incremental dollar, and it was way more than $1, that this extra RAM hit on the box better pay off. And I think it did. Like when I think about the graphic bar that 360 set in the generation, Gears was really a fundamental part of that, even before we locked the hardware spec. And what was it going to mean to have games that look this amazing on the platform? And thank goodness it was there, because I think it really helped the 360 and what it became.
Absolutely. I think when you think Xbox, I mean, Gears is absolutely one of those pillar franchises that define who Xbox is as a brand for gamers. And I love that you mentioned co-op, because that's basically all I've played Gears is co-op.
Yeah.
And I love that they also have, you know, the multiplayer, and that's cool. But for me, it was all about horde mode.
Horde mode's co-op, yeah.
Have you ever done 0 to 50?
Yeah. And now, like, I'm playing Diablo 4 with Rod Ferguson, who was our producer on this, now the lead for Diablo. And I still reference things when we're playing together. So the new Horde in Diablo 4 is still Horde mode to me. Like every time I see any game, whether it's COD and their round-based zombies, it's Horde. And that was the beginning of so many of these kind of co-op round-based experiences in multiplayer, and they were a blast. Like everybody had a role. You take this flank, I'm going to take this flank. Revive me, I'm down. Like that dynamic of shared achievement with your friends on a night when is just so rewarding for all of us, like when we get through something. And I thought Gears kind of held that with just such a magical way.
I love that you brought up Rod. Rod is great. Shout out to Rod if you're watching. He led one of your studios inside Xbox, and kind of the era where Gears went from being external to being internal.
Yeah.
And that was a really big moment for you guys.
Yeah, so we did Gears with Epic. They got to the point where this Fortnite thing, which I hear is going to be pretty big, was coming on. So their effort rightfully was going to be moving to something that was incredible for them as a company. But I didn't want Gears to go away. So, you know, the discussions with Tim Sweeney, Mark Rain about, hey, we would love to continue. And it was kind of a special coming together of Rod Ferguson, the Coalition in Vancouver. We had to build a studio. We had some parts of a studio in Vancouver, but we had to build a studio to go and take that on, which has growing pains, and you learn, like, what does it mean to go build a game that others have built before? It's not the easiest thing to go do. But now I'm so proud of what the Coalition can do. And then, funny enough, the world is a small place. Here's Rod working at Blizzard on Diablo, now part of Microsoft again as well. It's nice. And then tying it to the E-Day thing at Showcase, seeing that the Coalition, even without Rod and that kind of history with the franchise, I thought they just did a really nice job, even though it's kind of an intro piece of recognizing the things that are special about that franchise, down to some of the iconic music, to the characters that we love, some of which we've lost, but now we see. And I was really proud of the Coalition and how they put that forward, and I think did a really nice job of respecting the history of the franchise.
I'm excited to see more, Phil. When do we get to see more V-Day, Phil?
Not today, I'm sorry, but we will.
Nothing to announce at this time. I'm even more excited, though, to talk about the next game in the list, because this is a game we both have spent a lot of time playing, but sadly not together.
Have you ever played together?
No. We have to fix that. We'll fix it.
Okay.
All right, let's hear the clip. Yes, he picked it right away in the front row. I didn't think a lot of people would guess this because it's from Vanilla. Destiny, the OG. I love that you picked this. Am I a Destiny stan? Absolutely. Anybody who follows me knows this. The What's Good Guardians are here, which is fantastic. And I would love to hear about why you picked Destiny and how this game arrived in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny has, there's so many kind of mixed emotions and stories for me around Destiny. Obviously, Bungie was part of Microsoft. When I started in Xbox, Bungie was already part of Xbox. And I shared a floor with Alex Seropian, Jason Jones in the building that we were in Redmond. And I learned a ton from just being around Bungie and how to build games and Alex's approach and Jason's approach to design. I would spend a ton of time down in their offices talking to them about stuff I was working on and getting their feedback. So, you know, Bungie, both as part of Microsoft and then spinning Bungie out, getting the pitch for Destiny on do we want to sign this? We ended up not signing Destiny. I'd obviously went with Activision, and to seeing what it grew into, like from a business kind of Xbox standpoint, I can look at it and it's just a really interesting journey in terms of what they built. Their history with Halo, as somebody who loves Halo, like I can look at Destiny 1 and you can see some of the continuation of things that they learned about having one iconic character that everybody is, like Master Chief is the center of the Halo universe. But in some ways from storytelling, maybe that constrains you a little bit. So then you go and you build a game where your lead character, your guardian, is something that you configure and all of the unlocks that has. But then from a gunplay and other things, movement, it's a Bungie game. Like it feels so great. I have to be honest, when Destiny 1 came out, and I might have played some of the preview builds that we were doing on Xbox, it didn't really click with me, right? I'm not a big PvP player. If somebody looks at my you can see my player history. It's not a lot of what I do. And I was a little worried that I was going to get thrown into a PvP world. And it turns out that's not what it was at all. And when Wolves came out, it definitely landed me. And then we should talk about it, like from a gaming standpoint, and things I learned through play and community. There's a whole nother side of it. But the thing about Destiny that I start with is just my history with Bungie and their evolution of working on games. I do love that it's a local team. I have a lot of friends over there still. And yes, they're owned by the other guys now, but it's a game that I'll always love, and a team that I'll always have a ton of affinity for.
No, like small pangs of, dang, we could have had it.
You know, I got so many of those. I've passed on some of the worst, made some of the worst game choice decisions. Like, this isn't in our list, but an interesting one. When this team came down to Redmond, and Alex Rogopoulos, and who's great, love Alex.
He's amazing, shout out to Alex.
And he pitches a game where they're actually gonna make plastic guitars, and they're gonna plug into consoles, and then they're gonna sell tracks where you're gonna play Simon on this guitar, an old reference. and I'm like, really? Do we really think that's going to work?
No one's going to play that, Phil.
And a few people played Guitar Hero. I hear that turned into a pretty good game.
Yeah,
and then Rock Band and everything.
That did okay, I think.
Rock Band, yeah, like the whole thing turned. So I've passed. I'm not a regrets type person. Maybe that's a fault of mine. But I passed on so many games that I could look back and say, But no, I try to look forward and be positive about the things that we are doing. And so with Destiny, I just like to celebrate what the team has done.
I mean, it's incredible. I remember in the beginning years of Destiny, when Activision was talking about a 10-year plan,
Yeah.
a lot of us were like, what, 10 years? That's really ambitious. But now here we are at the 10-year mark, and we just had the final shape earlier this summer, and it's been incredible to see how the game has changed so much over the course of the years. And we couldn't talk about Destiny without talking about who's your main.
Titan, all day.
Okay. I'll allow it, though I'm a cape girly. I'm a hunter main. Yeah, that's right. Capes unite. When you were playing Destiny, we already talked about how PvP wasn't your thing.
Yeah,
The PvE,
not a big Crucible player.
I'm with you. PvE is where I'm at home, too, and it's a core part of the Destiny experience for millions of players.
Yeah.
Do you have like a fire team that you always roll with, or do you kind of pick up and play, or do matchmaking ever?
So Destiny 1 and then rolling into Destiny 2, kind of going back to my in real life people, was the first game where I actually met people first in game who I then met in the real world, and some of my best friends even to this day. People I've been playing games with for 10 years, Destiny with, and now we play other things as well. But you know, that was something that was really eye-opening to me. And the thing I love, and sits at like the core now for me in my love of video games, is these are people I met who I would never have run into in the streets of Seattle in my hometown here. I would not have met them in my work or my circle of that I normally see. That I met these people because we needed to finish the Nightfall on a Tuesday before the Tuesday reset. So we jumped in, and it was like, come on, let's go run it together and save the world, or at least try to get the drop. And then try, and then it turned into more than that. So then we would start playing together, and as most times happens when you have the headset on, and at first you're talking about strategy in the game and what you need to go do, but after maybe the 30th or 40th Nightfall or strike or raid, like the conversation goes in other places, and you start talking about life. And you start talking about what are you doing in your world, what's happening. And for me, it connected me with people that I think in the real world I would have never met. And I think what a special thing that video games can do of build connection with people, not based on where you live or where you went to school or where you work, or even what you believe and what you look like, but rather this shared love of this art form of video games. And then I've been lucky enough, like whether it's at E3 or other shows, to get together with people that I met through play in Destiny. And like those friendships, I believe, will be with me for the rest of my life. And the fact that video games were the catalyst for building those connections with people who live in other countries, people who are kind of dealing with their own stuff. And when I'm playing, just to be clear, I'm not head of Xbox. I'm just the guy who can't shoot anything with any level of aim. So I get yelled at with just any other.
So that's why you're a Titan. It all makes sense.
I need the tank.
Yes, I threw some shade. It's okay. We're all friends here.
But I also love that. Like, I love that when I'm playing, like, I should be. I'm just another person with a controller in my hand. But the fact that video games, it's almost complete circle for me of going to arcades, which were all about the physical connection with other people around me, loving Robotron or Defender or Stargate or whatever it was that we were playing, to playing solo, to seeing other people online but not really having a connection, to now, games where I probably it's one of my primary source of new friends is playing with people online. So going back to your question, sorry, long-winded.
No, I love this anecdote. It's wonderful.
Sometimes my Fire Team or Xbox Live party is wide open. Sometimes it's closed. Usually it's just about, hey, we're full and there's this number of people who are going to go. I'm playing a ton of Diablo 4 right now of Go Run Durials. But I love people I get to meet online, whether it's just meeting people online or people who want to talk about gaming and Xbox, or if we want to talk about the game that we're playing, or we just want to talk about life. And the fact that video games builds those connections between people who have such a broad set of backgrounds, I just think is awesome.
It's interesting hearing from people just how many intimate connections with people that they've formed over video games. I have the exact same experience you did with Destiny, having met people online and then having them meet IRL and then being like, oh my gosh, let's be friends, like for real, let's like plan more of these things.
Yeah.
But also the amount of people that have met their partners or spouses through video games, of which I am one of them, is also an incredibly high number. Are there people in the audience that have met their spouse or partner through video games? Yeah, a good amount of people. And I think that speaks to the power of the medium and how it inspires passion and conversation and fun and silliness and sometimes stress when you're in the 5th or 6th hour of the raid and you haven't cleared like the second boss or whatever, right? I think we all have that Destiny experience as well. But I think it's so important to drive home that message that it more connects us than divides us when it comes to life in general, but specifically games and the way we play them.
Yeah, and I think with video games specifically, as a kid who grew up, as I said, kind of a chess-playing, D&D playing comic book kid, I wasn't always comfortable, definitely not being on stage, I'm still not, but I wasn't always comfortable being out there. But when I was playing video games, when we're playing, we can kind of describe through our own comfort who we are and how we want to be seen and what we want to be called. And I think there's real power in video games and letting us control the narrative around us, because there's a lot of stereotypes that sometimes come in from the outside. And for me, at least in my journey in playing video games, it was nice that, one, I could find a community of people who loved the same stuff that I liked. But also when we got online, like you could kind of, you meet people and it's not about what they look like or anything else. It's probably about their shared love of the game you're playing, and their desire to kind of stick out that 5th hour to finish the raid together and accomplish something with friends. And I think that tells a lot about who people are, and I think that's awesome. One thing I also want to say about Destiny, I'm kind of going back, but just in thinking about my learning on Destiny, because I was teasing a little bit about the Tuesday Nightfall wipes, I've also watched gaming as an industry really grow in how it programs time and how it engages us, not just the hours that we want to play. And some games might go a little bit too far in this, but I love the fact that there's kind of scheduled gaming now. Like there are things that you need to go do, or you can choose not to, but that they actually spend time thinking about this as an activity, and they create a moment where they do pull people together of like, okay, there's a moment, like if you think about Destiny and the event on the tower and everybody kind of coming together, like those moments of bringing community together and how video games continue to grow to create more reasons for the community to come together on a regular schedule, I think makes it really nice for some of us that are very busy. And but I'm not going to miss the Nightfall, so I'll be there on Monday night.
I'm going to miss my solstice gear.
That's right.
Gotta get it.
Right.
Gotta have the glowies. Maybe that's just me. We're getting towards the end of our time, and I wanted to ask a question that kind of brings your journey full circle. So we were just talking about how video games have evolved both from an art and technological standpoint. They're certainly much more complex and diverse today than they were when your journey began, you know, back with Robotron. What are some of the hopes or aspirations that you have for the incoming generations of gamers that have this incredible backdrop of where video games are at today?
And one of the things I really see a lot of now, just from my position, is where games come from. Like when I started, there were like 4 places on the planet where games were built, you know, whether it was England or Japan or Hunts Valley in Maryland. Like there were a few places where video games were really from, but now video games come from anywhere. You know, we've got our first ID games coming from Nigeria that'll be coming to the platform. We run game camps in so many different places where we engage youth in learning the skills of building a video game, and we see those games published. Southeast Asia, Brazil, China, obviously now, I mean, huge games. And I love the fact that the stories that are told in those games, consciously or subconsciously, will always be told through the lens of the creator and their lived experience. And it's just, how special is it now, where the kids growing up, or any of us that are playing, that we're playing games that have come from so many different places with different perspectives. And I think that's such a healthy thing for our industry. The fact that you and I can go build a game today, and we can publish it on any of the consoles or on Steam, wherever we want, put that game in front of literally billions of people, and those games can become successful. It's one of the reasons I love what you mentioned, Vampire Survivors earlier, but like those kind of stories of a person with a vision of, I'm going to go create a game. Maybe they get told no a few times by some publishers or studios, so they go and they do it themselves. And the fact that games are so open and platforms are much more open to games from anywhere, and from teams of any size, I just think really creates an awesome place for so many different stories to be told by an amazing set of creators, and that excites me.
It's a fantastic place to be. We say all the time, what a great time to be a gamer.
Yes.
TM, trademark that. Phil, this has been so lovely hearing about some of the games that have shaped your journey. I could keep talking to you about other games for literally hours, but I know that these people probably want to head on over to the expo, maybe play some games for themselves. Do you have any parting thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, I would be remiss sitting here at PAX on 20 years, our hometown show for Seattle. Just congratulations to the Penny Arcade team and all the work that they've done. I remember when the show was like in hotels, then the kind of when we had one convention center and let's just say we didn't really fit in there as PAX, and the garbage cans and other things would show that, to seeing what they've done now with a show that's in multiple locations. They've stuck it out and built something amazing for 20 years. Seeing what the show floor is today and how companies like Nintendo and stuff are just doing some amazing things here. I just wanted to help celebrate 20 years. I was asked if I could do this, and to be part of the 20-year celebration of PAX is a real honor, and I want to honor the people who have put this show on for so long, because I think it's a really important part of the industry. So thank you.
Definitely deserves a round of applause. Phil, thank you so much for sharing the games that shaped your journey, and thank you to the entire team at Penny Arcade and everybody who's on the support staff, and we hope that you guys have a fantastic PAX West. Happy 20 years.